And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
That means we've got.
Hey, welcome to Juckonbucks on a Wednesday morning, and it is Hump Day, guys. Hump Day of Oregon week, the game we've all been looking forward to for, gosh, how long? I mean, really since the schedule came out, but it's just been something that we talked about so much in the offseason, and it almost feels surreal that it's actually almost here. It's Wednesday of game week, and yesterday I had, so I guess it was yesterday. It was 1 a.m. I recorded an episode that I was going to release at 9:30. Well, when I went to upload it and I hit 9:30, I said, yeah, tomorrow, release it tomorrow. Well, since it was 1, it was actually not set to be released until Wednesday morning, which apologies for no episode yesterday morning. I did go ahead and just pump that out at 8 p.m., but you know, who wants to watch it at 8 p.m.? Regardless, today, Wednesday, I've got a dentist appointment and I'm not going to be able to do the show live at 9:30 a.m. So here I am again recording another episode, the second time this week. Not fond of it. However, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But, you know, being that it's Oregon week, I did want to make sure that I did put something out because, man, there's a lot to talk about. And I have not talked to Dylan. We didn't get to have him on the post-game show because it was kind of a quick post-game show this week. I don't know what it was. I don't know if you guys felt this way too, but after Iowa, like after the initial like praising of the things that were really good, there just wasn't a ton to talk about. It was almost like, all right, on to the rest of the action that was going on last Saturday. Because to me, the Bucks really destroyed everyone. Like it was a great game at Iowa. I thought so many players played really, really good. So many position groups played really well. You had a couple little misfires in the first half that kept it close in the first half, but even still, to me, it was a dominating first half, despite the score. And at halftime, I said this to a couple of people who said they thought they had a slow start. Like, was there any part of you at halftime that didn't think that was going to end up in a blowout? I was 100% confident going into halftime that this was just a matter of a couple drives with no mistakes, and it was going to be totally blown out. And it was. So there just wasn't a ton to talk about, but a ton to talk about this week, obviously. And I have got a list of things to talk about with Dylan Davis. And we had a press conference, our normal Tuesday press conference with Ryan Day. Ryan was all business, man, all business, So what happens in these big games is all the local media that is at like the news people, right? They come into the press conference and they want to talk to Ryan Day. And they don't know football like we know football. So they're asking Ryan Day about things that people asked him in the offseason. Like, there's nothing to talk about in the offseason. So you ask him things like his relationship with Chip Kelly and their history and that kind of nonsense. And then you ask Chip Kelly about Oregon. And it's just like all that crap we got stuck with. That took half the press conference. So didn't get a ton of information out of it. But Dylan got to talk to Coach Day, Chip Kelly, and Will Howard. Did not get to talk to Jim Knowles, which stinks. You know, we got to hear from both of them last week. You'd really like to hear from both of them this week heading into Oregon. So Dylan and I got some things to talk about. And we're going to have that discussion here. Also, last night I went live with my buddy Ryan from Sports Chat 503. That's an Oregon station. And I streamed that on the channel, on my channel as well. So you can go back and watch that if you want. He is an Oregon dude, obviously. He's got a setup kind of like mine, but it's Oregon. So it's pretty cool. And we had a good discussion, good live discussion. If you were able to join me, I appreciate it. A lot of you guys showed up, and that was awesome. But I got some questions for Dylan. And I got a question for you that I've asked Dylan, and I don't know his answer. He doesn't know mine. But I want you to think about it. I'll ask him at the very end. I've got my answer. Who is, excluding quarterbacks, no Dylan Gabriel, no Will Howard, the most consequential player, could be good, could be bad, on Ohio State's team and on Oregon's team for this game? The most consequential player outside of Dylan and Will. And since Dylan's not here yet, I'm just going to give you my answer. My answer is Josh Fryer. And conversely, on the other side, it's Jordan Birch. And I think that they're going to match up Jordan Birch with Josh Fryer quite a bit. And Josh has struggled a little bit with the more athletic edges, right? He's been better against the powerful guys. He's like a stone wall. You can't get through him. But these guys that are a little longer, a little twitchier, Birch happens to be both powerful and twitchy and long at 6'6", 290. But we saw against the kid from Akron, who was a really solid edge, and the kid from Marshall, Green, both of them had one or two moves on Fryer where athletically he just had no chance. Now, Birch definitely has it in him to make that type of thing happen. So it's just a matter of, can Fryer limit those times that he does it? Because I think he's going to eat at some point. We're going to see Fryer get beat a couple times. Can he limit it? And to me, outside of Will Howard and Dylan Gabriel, that is the biggest matchup for this game. Because when we look at these two lines, so if you look at both sides of the trenches, what we originally thought heading into the season was Oregon's offensive line was going to have the advantage over Ohio State's offensive line. They were going to be the better unit. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think the Buckeyes offensive line is better. And I think the Buckeyes offensive line against the Oregon defensive line is about a stalemate. On the flip side of the ball, I think the Ohio State defensive line has the edge on the Oregon offensive line. So that's a huge plus for the Buckeyes. I'm curious to get Dylan's take on that. After our guy after Josh Fryer, the next important guy for the Buckeyes, the next most consequential guy for the Buckeyes to me is Sonny Styles and Cody and really Hancock, that whole crew, right? That whole crew, and you can probably add Arvell in there too. Because I think the difference in this game, and you can boil it down to just real simple. Can Ohio State limit Jordan James in that rushing attack? If Ohio State can bottle up that rushing attack, then I don't think Oregon has much of a chance to keep the pace with Ohio State. They're going to get theirs in the passing game. They're just going to get theirs. And there's no way around it. You got to limit it. You got to limit explosive plays, which I think Knowles will do quite a bit. They get the ball out fast. They scheme their guys open really well. And they're going to hit Ferguson, their tight end, quite a bit. And he's pretty good. Limit explosive plays with that and focus on bottling up James. And if you can do it, and I think they can, with Tyleek back, who makes such a big difference in the run game, and he makes Ty Ham better. If Sonny, Cody, Hancock, and Arvell coming in for whatever amount of time they end up being in the 4-3, if those guys can play their best and bottle up Jordan James, get off their blocks, make the right reads, like if they play great, I don't think Oregon can keep the pace. And if they're playing great, I think this could end up in a 14 to 17 point victory for the Bucks. So that's how I'm feeling on Wednesday. And I think each day it gets a little better. We'll see. But we'll have Dylan in, and we will get to a couple other things. We got a big visitor list at Oregon this week. The only visitors that are guys that we would be interested in, Dorian Brew will not be there. I was asked the other day by Jimmy Jackson about Emmanuel Ahianachu, and he is the number 2 tackle in the country, offensive tackle in the class of 2026, and he will be there. He also said that he is coming to the Ohio State-Michigan game, so big news there. So the Bucks definitely are in close contact with him, and things are moving well there. They're also going to have Naeem Offord there, of course, so he'll be there. Ahianachu will be there. Very important to win. Dorian Brew is going to be there, or I'm sorry, not going to be there. DeCorian Moore will be there, as will Jordan Davison. So I would certainly love for the Bucks to win out there with them. Thing is, Trey McNutt won't be there. You know, it's almost like this. You can spin it either way, right? When you're recruiting kids, if you win, you want to be a part of this. If you lose, we need you to get over the hump, so it doesn't really matter. But I do always like to, when the Buckeyes choose somebody else to be able to beat that team that the kid, or when a recruit chooses someone else to be able to beat that team that they chose is always a good feeling, especially when they're in attendance. So I would absolutely love to see that. And so we're going to have Dylan on, and then we're going to go over a couple other things. Hey, it's Juck, and MyBookie is back with another offer for the Juckonbucks audience. Open up a new MyBookie account, and they're going to match whatever you put in 100%. Put in $100, they're going to make it 200. Put in 3, they're going to make it 6, all the way up to $1,000. If you're new to sports gambling, we do picks every Friday. We are +7 on the year for the Juckonbucks official picks, and we're going to keep it on rolling. So sign up for MyBookie. They're going to match your deposit. Use the promo code JUCK, and we're going to go through that every week, every Friday. Also, if you like online casinos, they're going to give you a $10 free chip for that as well. It's a great sports book. I've been using it for years. If you're new to gambling, I'm here every morning at 9:30. Put a question in the chat. I'll help you. I'm an experienced gambler, so to speak. The key is don't risk what you can't afford to lose, and you'll always have fun. Have some fun with me. Sign up, MyBookie, promo code JUCK. Get your free money. All right, and joining me now, our buddy Dylan Davis from the Delaware Gazette. Dylan and I did not get to hook up on the post-game show. I didn't go quite as long, and I'll tell you, it was about 45 minutes, Dylan, and the reason why, and I was just saying in the intro, was like the game to me was so good. Like everything was just good. There was nobody angry. Nobody was irritated. We went over all the great things we saw. There was one thing, and that was a thing that I have a dispute with. And that was, we've talked for a while about the Buckeyes getting off to slow starts. And it was an issue last year. It was an issue against Akron, not against Western Michigan, an issue again against Marshall, an issue against Michigan State. This game against Iowa, I felt like they got off to a great start.
They did.
12-play drive. You stopped Iowa. They got one first down in their first possession. Everything seemed to be clicking, except you had a stupid pick, and then you had a fluky JJ gets the ball punched out, a stop on downs. It felt to me like that first half could have been 28-0 very easily.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then, I guess my biggest gripe with the first half was probably that fourth down call that led to the turnover on downs. I didn't have a problem with them, keeping the ball in Will Howard's hands, but to do it out of empty I didn't like that at all. But absolutely, Ohio State dominated that first half, in every facet other than the scoreboard. And I know the scoreboard is ultimately what counts. But that was a good performance out of Ohio State in the first half, minus the turnovers. And again, I know you can't do that this week. Obviously, those kind of things would get you beat. But it wasn't a slow start in the sense of what we've known in recent years with Ohio State and slow starts. They didn't come out and go 3 and out, or something like that. Obviously they had the great drive to open the game. And the other drives too. Yeah, that could have absolutely been a 24 point, lead at halftime if they just didn't shoot themselves in the foot. So obviously something they have to get corrected there or just remove altogether. But it wasn't a slow start. They played well in the first half outside of just, making some terrible mistakes. So
yeah, I felt like they just did everything they wanted to do was absolutely working. And there was no doubt in my mind when they walked, I wasn't even irritated walking in when they're walking off the field. I'm like, whatever, 28 point third quarter incoming. And sure enough, I think that might have been what we had.
Yeah, it was.
But it was pretty flawless. So there wasn't much to talk about in the post-game show. And then so we're moving on, obviously straight to Oregon, but I want to go over a couple of things first. The first thing is we saw a fantastic performance from Sonny. It was awesome. Obviously he was doing something different as we were playing in the 4-3. Jordan Hancock only had 17 snaps in the game. That's how much they were in the 4-3, which puts Sonny in the Sam. Slightly different responsibilities, but he looked athletic. He looked like he wasn't thinking. He was just reacting. He looked more physical. He was talking crap. He was fired up. It was like a different player. And I feel like even though he's going to go back to the Will and we're going to be playing different against Oregon and he's going to have more responsibilities, the confidence that he must have gained from this, I think it's worth a lot, Dylan.
Yeah, without a question. Look, this game was tailor-made for the Silver Bullets altogether. Look, anybody who has to line up and run the football straight down somebody's, straight down Ohio State or try to do that, good luck, man. You're screwed. And sorry, Michigan, because that's exactly what they're going to have to do to stay in that football game in November. It's just not going to happen. Ohio State's just too good, in that situation. And we saw it on Saturday. And for Sonny too, look, it looks like, Sonny, that's exactly the kind of game you want Sonny to play. You said it. He was, he was more decisive. He didn't have to, think quite as much. He was just able to play downhill and fly around. And we know Sonny's a hell of an athlete. And when you just get him out there running around making plays, he looked exactly like the Sonny Styles everybody assumed, we were going to get, playing that position. So, big for Sonny. Look, you alluded to it this week, a whole different ball game. It's just, you're not going to see, I'd be surprised if you see 3 linebackers on the field, more than, a play or two in that game. So it's going to be back to, that 2 linebacker set, and Sonny's going to have to play sideline to sideline again. And that's where we have questions and whatnot. But with that being said, it's something that he has this kind of confidence going into this game. I don't know what it translates to. I don't know, how many, tackles that's worth, confidence and whatnot, but it's not irrelevant to say that he had, a really good game and is going to come into this game with a lot of confidence because he needed it. Look, he needed it. I know these guys all the time talk about not reading things or not being on Twitter and whatnot. And I've always said that's crap. They're human beings. They have lives outside of football. People are talking to them, friends, family, they hear that stuff and whatnot. So look, I know, Sonny was at least somewhat aware of some of the things that were being said about him. Some fair, some, maybe a little over top. I don't know. But for him to come into this game Saturday with a little bit of confidence, a lot of confidence, probably because he played really well, one of their best players on the field on Saturday. Yeah. That's something. So, and again, what that's worth, we'll see. And because it's such a different game, it's going to be such a different style. Maybe it's not worth anything. But it was something. And more than anything, I'm just happy for Sonny because I know that he needed that performance, and I'm sure it had to feel really good for him.
I think if nothing else, it gives me confidence just as a fan, like that when he does get everything down mentally from, he's got much more responsibility. When he's seen enough reps, when it all settles in where he's currently at, that step faster is going to be there. That reaction time is going to be there. That aggressiveness is going to be there once he gets it all down with the reps that he needs. And that makes me feel better. As far as this game, I don't know. I feel like one of the keys to this game is going to be bottling up Jordan James running downhill like he did against Michigan State and stopping their tight ends. And I think they're going to get theirs in the passing game with their wide receivers. They take the small shots. If we can limit the big plays, and we've done a great job doing that, and if we can stop that running game, that downhill running game that they did against Michigan State, if we can stop that, which is ultimately going to come down to Sonny, to Cody, to Hancock, and maybe Arvell if they end up putting in 3 linebackers at some point, that might be a way that they can get more stops than Oregon's going to get, because I'm seeing a high scoring game. How you feeling like this game's going to play out? What are you looking for? What are your keys? Let's talk about the Oregon game.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Everything I just said about Sonny Styles, I'll be honest with you, he scares me in this game. If I'm being honest, if I just speaking candidly, he scares me in this game. I think that this game so much comes down to a couple of things, and some of them are just, your obvious, things in any football game, but turnovers will be big. They're always big, but they're certainly even bigger in these games when you're on the road, whether you can create them or whether you turn the ball over. I think it's just, they're, even more valuable or even, a bigger killer to you. But I also think tackling is going to be so good because, like you talked about, these short, these quick, how quick Dylan Gabriel gets the ball out of his hands and these quick shots and whatnot, and Jordan James for that matter as well. Look, Jordan James isn't a guy who's, ripped off a lot of big plays this year so far, but he's good enough and quick enough that if you're out of position or if you miss a tackle, that he could hurt you. So I think tackling is going to be such a big thing as well. You talked about Jordan Hancock, and I would add Sonny Styles into that mix as well. So they're just sound tacklers, and they're going to have to be to clean up any of those things that maybe could potentially go from 6 or 7 yards to 40 or 50 yards. So I think those two big things. But Sonny worries me because the idea that Sonny's going to have to keep on running, towards the sideline, and then if he starts, I don't want to say cheating, or whatnot. But if he starts to get worn out doing that and whatnot, and then those shots up the gut kind of then they start to hit, and then now he's really just scrambling, his head spinning and whatnot. So I'm not going to say that Sonny can't do it, but this is such a if Ohio State goes out and struggles in this game or loses and Sonny doesn't play well, it would be a watershed moment. Or it would be a fork in the road, I guess, moment for that defense, because then I don't know where you go after that in terms of the linebackers. Like if you're not going to make a change after that, then I don't know if you would at any point in this season. So I think Sonny Styles is the biggest player in the game, in my opinion. I think he's, if you ask me, I think he's the biggest key to this game for Ohio State, because I'm confident in what Ohio State and will do offensively. I really am. And we'll get to that in a minute, but I'm confident Ohio State's going to move the ball and put up some points on Saturday. I really am. And I'm also very confident in the defense too, if Sonny plays well. And if they tackle well, and if they want to make Oregon go 10, 12 plays down the field to get their points, Ohio State will live that all day. But if they start giving up chunk yardage and whatnot, and this does turn into a shootout, as you alluded to, you thought it might be, now I'm not so sure I'm as confident as I was coming into the game.
So I said in the intro to everybody that I was going to ask you who your most consequential player of the game was for the Buckeyes. And I didn't know the answer. So you are saying you think Sonny is it. I had him as number 2 for me. I think for me, the most consequential player in this game is going to be Fryer, because we've seen against Akron and against Marshall, where they had 2 guys that were kind of like a Kenyatta style guy. And that's what the Ducks got in this Jordan Birch, man. The kid's a stud. He's got 5 sacks, 21 pressures. He's 6'6", 290. He can do it physically. He can do it with his quickness. And it's the super athletic guys that have given him fits. I feel like he's been a bit of a stone wall with the powerful guys, and he can handle that. But it's these this new age kind of freaky dude that's got all that bend and all the moves that he's been having issues with. And I think that might be. I just think that is the reason. If we can't move the ball, if we can't throw the ball, like, it's going to be pressure coming off that edge. And I think he's really probably the most consequential guy for the team.
I think if I had to pick an offensive player, I would totally agree with that, because I also think, look, I know a lot's being made of Oregon's defensive line this week, and rightfully so for what they've done so far. Jordan Birch has 5 sacks already. I think Harmon has 3.5 maybe.
I think just 2 sacks, but he's got 25 pressures, Dylan, which is more than Jack.
Mateo Uliangalele looked really good against Michigan State. So I understand, these guys look really good so far. I'm not ready to crown these guys as some, elite defensive line unit, though. I'll be honest with you. I think this is such a prove-it game for both their defensive line and Ohio State's offensive line. I think one of those units is going to come out of this game, and I think, they're both both fan bases are going to, know a lot about them. And as a country, across the country, people are going to say that's a really good Ohio State offensive line, or like, hey, that Oregon defensive line is a problem for anybody they face. So I'm not ready to crown them yet. Look, I know Jordan Birch is having a good season. The last couple of years he had, I think 3 sacks apiece in the last 2 years and whatnot. So it's not impossible to say that he just took a big jump in his senior year and whatnot. But when you start talking about the competition they went up against and whatnot, like, is this a guy who's really about to put up a 15 sack season? I don't know. Again, we'll come out of Saturday knowing a lot more about that, depending on what they do.
Right.
But I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm overly scared of Oregon's defensive line. And look, I'm not ruling out the possibility that they could just wreck the game on Saturday. Josh Fryer looks terrible, looks like a turnstile, and they just wrecked the game on Saturday. I'm not saying that can't happen at all, because I'm not going to sit here and say that I know for beyond any doubt that Ohio State's offensive line is going to go dominate every game they play. I think that they're moving towards that, but again, such a big prove-it game for both of those lines on Saturday. So we'll see, but I'm not going to sit here and say that that Oregon offensive line scares me to no end.
So it's not just this side. So if I'm going, all right, Buckeye offensive line, Oregon defensive line, obviously before the season, I would have said that Oregon defensive line definitely has the edge. As we've watched the Ohio State offensive line develop, I think this is a coin flip for me. Like, I don't know who's going to get the best of this matchup here. But when we go the other direction, the Ohio State defensive line versus the Oregon offensive line, I think that the Buckeye defensive line has a clear edge in this advantage. And I think that it's going to be one of the keys to the game. And my gosh, man, Tyleek makes so much of a difference. He probably has got to be on that defense the most valuable player because he makes the linebackers so much better. He even makes Ty Hamilton so much better. As he goes, that defense goes, really.
Ty, without a doubt, he's the most valuable player on that defense, and you can make a case. I know it's hard to compare sides of the ball, but you can make the case that he's most valuable to his position across the entire team. Look, Ryan said today that they've had talks before about not taking Tyleek off the field during the rushman package. When they bring the rushman onto the field because of how good he is rushing the passer, and he belongs out there. And he said ultimately it boils down to a snap count issue of not adding more snaps to Tyleek's plate. But look, Tyleek means everything to that defense. We saw it. When he missed time and it just looked looked a little bit off. He means everything to that defense. And we knew he was really good coming into it. He seems like he's elevated his play to another level now. And I'm not a huge. I don't pay attention a lot to what NFL scouts and evaluators are saying when it comes to draft this early. Eventually, I will but so I don't know where his draft grade so to speak was now or coming into the season or where it is now, but I'm surely guys are taking note of it in the NFL because he looks like everything that you would want out of a high round or a high draft pick at that spot because he eats space and he can still rush a passer from up the gut. And those guys obviously are very valuable in the NFL. So, but yeah, he means everything to that defense. It just changes everything. And why wouldn't it? Because again, when you have a guy who can create pressure as he does and also still be so dominant in the run game as well, those guys are invaluable. I like Ohio State's defensive line against their offensive line as well. I think that's a clear advantage Ohio State, assuming that they continue to play the way Jack Sawyer's playing right now. My goodness, he's playing such great football. There was a lot of questions about the way he finished last year, and if that was something that could carry over, if that was just kind of flash in the pan and whatnot. No, it carried over. Jack Sawyer's playing some amazing football for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I like Ohio State's defensive line in that matchup as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So to your question, they are very much respecting the Tyleek. We're talking like top 15 range is where we were seeing him in the offseason, and he's probably elevated from there. But his quickness with that extra weight that he carries is ridiculous. Like and he's so strong and powerful, just a delight to watch. I absolutely love it. And the issues that they've had on their offensive line have been on that interior. So good luck. And I'm really looking forward to that. I did want to hit on this, Dill. Last week we talked, okay. Up until that point, we had seen offensive or at right guard, the reps being kind of split between Tegra and Austin. Go into the game against Michigan State, and all of a sudden, it's all Tegra the whole game. Austin gets like 3 snaps, and then today, it sounds like it's Tegra moving forward, and he played fantastic against Iowa. Did I say Michigan State? He played fantastic against Iowa.
Yeah,
he was excellent. Probably his best game as a Buckeye yet, which was great to see. But it just seems strange. There was a change there because he said that he was going to go with both of them as long as they were both playing good, which they had through Michigan State. And then all of a sudden it was just all Tegra. I don't know. Did I miss something?
No, I don't disagree. Like I kind of got the sense that for the longer this kind of played out, like the more that it said about Austin than it did about Tegra, because I think that any head coach, if you have the opportunity to kind of shut the door on that and say like, no, this is my best right guard, and of course we're going to play him as such, then I think you would do that. So I was kind of under the impression that the longer this carried on, that maybe there's a chance that Austin is pushing to be that guy and whatnot. I will say, this is in no way like a pat on the back for me and whatnot. A few weeks ago, and now we talked about this, and I said under no circumstances is Ohio State going to be rotating along the offensive line come Oregon. And I said that because I'm surprised that it took this long. I've never seen it happen up to this point, for as long as it did. But I've never seen that happen, that a team rotate offensive linemen in games of that magnitude and whatnot. I mean, here we are, and I think that by all means, Tegra Shabola is your starting right guard, and then he's going to play as such, on Saturday, unless obviously injuries or he's getting exposed, which, the way Tegra played on Saturday against Iowa, I have full confidence in him and whatnot. So I don't think anything's changed so much. I just think, I think they were looking for, somebody to solidify that. I think Tager went a long way in doing that, leading into Iowa. And I don't know if, Tager's a big, and not the Austin small, obviously you play or you play along the offensive line at Ohio State. You're a big dude, but Tager's so big and strong, man. And against that, specifically against that Iowa defensive line, it just seemed like this kind of matchup if Tager was ever going to excel, that right. was the time to do it. And he did. Ryan alluded to that a little bit today, and Tager validated the decision. So look, Tager is your starting right guard right now. What that means. I asked Ryan going into the Michigan State game for this specific reason. For this game, if he was willing to continue this rotation at right guard as long as both guys were playing well, and his answer was, if they're both playing well, yes, he will continue this rotation. But then he said it's rare that two guys would continue to play, equally well to where they both deserve to be on the field at the same time and whatnot. And from that, I read into it that eventually this was going to go to, a single guy, as I always thought it would, because again, it was kind of a weird situation to begin with that it lasted this long. And fortunately, Ohio State had the schedule to allow them to do that. But now as the schedule's starting to get a little more real, started to last week, and Tager played all but 3 snaps. It sounds like this week, barring, something, if he gets hurt or, gets exposed, he's going to play this entire game Saturday. And I think moving forward, that's just going to be the way it is. Austin played well, but I think Tager is, your best right guard right now at Ohio State, and it's starting to, play out as such on the field.
A couple of more personnel questions, Dill. As we move on, do we know anything about Carnell Tate? We think he's good to go.
Yeah, no question. And nobody asked him today, and thank goodness they didn't, to waste any time, because this is more like a Wednesday thing. Because the good thing about Wednesday practices is we get them after practice. So at that point, they practice their 2 big practice days, Tuesday and Wednesday. They've already accomplished both of those. So I enjoy when the injury questions are asked after Wednesday, because after Wednesday, you have a really good idea of a guy's status for Saturday, because there's not going to be a whole lot from then on out throughout the rest of the week where they could re-injure themselves and whatnot. So we'll get a better answer on that tomorrow when we talk to Ryan. Today, I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, I guess it would be today. So tonight. So we'll get a better answer on that tonight. But it sounds like it was the same situation that you've had with Donovan. Same situation you've had where he could have played if they had to. If they were playing Oregon last week, he probably would have went. But they didn't feel like they needed to. They were right that they didn't need to. And it gave him another week to be healthy. From everything I've heard and everything that's been said about him and what was said about him after the game last week, he's absolutely ready to go. And not just like he can play. It sounds like he'll be, plenty healthy to play and be himself out there. But we'll get a better answer on that tonight. Certainly that'll be out there on the Twitter sphere.
So one of the more interesting things in his absence was Bryson Rogers played 40 snaps. Brandon Inniss only about 20. That's something that I certainly didn't see coming. I thought that Bryson played pretty well. Yeah. And Brandon did too. Good to see both of them, come and step up. But that definitely surprised me. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, without a doubt. I don't know how much of that, boils down to, them wanting to play Brandon more inside and Bryson, I don't know how much of that factored into it, but I certainly took notice of it that Bryson was on the field as early as he was and as much as he was. And good for him. I know he's been right there on the, the cusp of being in that rotation, going back to camp and whatnot. So good for him. I don't think it says a whole lot about, jumping Brandon Inniss on the overall depth chart and whatnot. And look, Brandon still had 3 catches, I think. So he still, made the most of his opportunities as well, and whatnot. But it definitely surprised me that he was out on the field that much. And we'll see going forward. Now, obviously, hopefully we don't have to find out anything anymore because he's going to stay healthy. And you have your trio out there that's as good as anybody in the country. But it was certainly, I took notice of it.
Well, it looks like Ballard's been officially bumped down another spot. And, it's a shame and a good thing at the same time, but
that story's already been written. Unfortunately, we've talked about it ad nauseum this year, last year, whenever. He's just not a guy who's going to play at Ohio State. For whatever reasons that ultimately happened, he's just not going to play at Ohio State, and that's life. That's life on the big stage, and Ohio State moves forward, and I don't know where he goes from here, but it's just not a factor in this team this year. So.
You've probably heard the stat so far, and I went over it yesterday on the show, that since we've started the new Big Ten here, teams are 1-7 traveling the 2 time zones. I broke those down, and USC at Michigan and USC at Minnesota were the only 2 times that a favorite lost. So this is really more of a USC problem than an anybody else problem. But Ryan Day talked about traveling the 2 time zones today, and he really poo-pooed it, basically saying they're going to stick on East Coast time. Is that something you follow? A lot of baseball and a lot of hockey. Do they kind of go by that same kind of motto?
Not really, and it's hard to compare with with these professional sports and whatnot because they get in so late, and so it's hard to follow any one schedule. It's not quite the same where you have obviously in college football, since you have time to fly out on Friday ahead of a game and things like that. It's not crazy when you have they have in baseball what's called getaway days. So obviously they play they'll play the last game of a series. They'll play it in the afternoon so these guys can get out of town and get to their next city on time and have a little bit of a time to wind down that night before getting back into the schedule of the next series in their next town and whatnot. But again, that's so different to what we're talking about here and whatnot. I don't really have anything to go off of with Ohio State in this because any of these trips they usually make like this, they're for bowl games, in which case they're out there for weeks ahead of time.
Right.
So I don't really have anything to go off of this. I love the answer. It makes so much sense. If you're going to do it.
Too.
And Ryan said as much today. They're fortunate that they can do this because of the time of the game. Because if this were a 3:30 Eastern time game playing at noon out there and whatnot, it might not be as easy for them to do and whatnot. But because it's a 7 or 7:30, better make sure I get to the stadium on time.
Yeah, we better make sure.
Yeah, but regardless, because it's a night game Eastern time, so it's an afternoon game there. It allows them to do that because they're going to get out there on Friday, and yeah, you have the whole jet lag thing and whatnot. Ryan said it's only a 4.5 hour flight or whatever, 2 hours more than the Nebraska flight and whatnot. I'm like, Ryan, I know you've flown a lot in your life, but an extra 2 hours on a plane seems like an eternity. So that is still something. But they're going to get out there on Friday, have their, their walkthroughs Friday night and get up on Saturday and essentially play what would be a 3:30 game at home, for the most part. And so that's really fortuitous that they're able to do that. I don't think that, you would always have that, ability to do that, going out that far, all the way to the West Coast. So it's nice they can do that. But I thought it was interesting as well. But I don't know if this is something they've done before because I don't know if this is something they could really do, because they don't have these trips that they're making this long. Like so many things in this season, we're seeing it for the first time, and what they're doing now kind of set the routine for how they do it in years to come. But you have to do it for the first time before you can do it. You follow that script. So good for them that they're able to do that. But so much has been made of this travel, but at the end of the day, they're hardly the first team that's gone out to the West Coast to play in a big football game. That's that they're not going to make excuses about that, nor should they, nor is it going to be an impact on the football game. If Sonny Styles fails to make that tackle, over on the sideline, it's not because he was jet lagged, it's just because he was slow and out of position and whatnot. So, yeah.
Ryan Day is often criticized for his performances in big games. He's 2-6 in top 5 matchups. This game didn't look like it was going to be a top 5 matchup. Now, of course, it's top 3 matchup. And that's a great opportunity for him. Not only that, but he might get the same opportunity against Penn State if they handle their business out at SC. I'm looking forward to both games. Obviously, this one first. Dan Lanning also with the similar criticism, though not a lot of background yet with it. He's lost to Washington every time he's played him, and he's kind of getting that similar thing. He can't win the big one. I heard a lot all off season about him. I don't think it's fair. The guy's, he's just started there, right? But Ryan's got it. And because of that, I think it really magnifies what this game might mean for him. But at the same time, it's like, how much do you put into that when he's going to get another opportunity, I think, probably again at the Big Ten Championship. But who do you think out of those 2 coaches this game means more for?
Wow. I would probably say Dan Lanning, to be honest with you. I would probably say Dan Lanning. I think that, look, if Ryan Day were to lose this game, just because of how it is, anytime Ohio State loses a football game, it's going to be a big deal. But as you said, everything they want to do, everything that they need to do to get back to Indy and get that rematch with them will still be right in front of them. And so much of what this season means ultimately, especially when it comes to Ryan Day specifically, is what happens in that Michigan game. I was talking with somebody today at basketball. We had basketball media day today, and I was talking to somebody there, and we got to talking about that Michigan game, and like that game is going to be the most uneasy week and game day for an Ohio State fan base for a team that's favored by 21 points in that game, because it all just comes down to that regard. So I mean, I think that if Ohio State loses this game, it'll be a big deal, just because Ohio State lost a football game, and that's what happens in Columbus. When that happens, the world comes to an end, and I get that. But ultimately, Ohio State will have everything in front of them. But Dan Lanning really needs that signature win. He really needs that moment to kind of fully push Oregon into the upper echelon of the college football elites, and obviously what an opportunity to do it at home, whatnot. And again, you've said, like you said, there's a small track record there, but he got beat by Washington twice. It's not unsimilar to what Ryan Day's situation is, but 3 of those losses are to Michigan. Now, it's almost like Ryan Day has a Michigan problem more than a big game problem. His other losses in the big game came against the national title game, right? And then the Fiesta Bowl in 2019. So 2, elite football teams, in which one case he lost a game that they shouldn't have lost in any way, and another they just ran into a buzzsaw against one of the better offenses I've ever seen in college football. So, I don't think that it's going to be a whole lot of panic if Ryan Day loses this game, in terms of, saying that the narrative being that he can't win the big game, so much as it's going to add pressure to it, obviously, because of what happens from then on out. But in terms of what it would mean more to, I think that Dan Lanning could really use this one. I don't think for either team, though, or for either coach, I don't think this is a huge moment in their careers. I just don't, because then it's just what we've talked about, how different the season is, where coming out of this, we fully expect these 2 teams to meet again in Indy, and still be able to go win a Big Ten title, get a bye in the playoff, in terms of Ohio State beat your rival, and try to go win a national championship. So assuming neither one of these teams just embarrass themselves on Saturday and get blown out, I just don't think that it's a huge thing for either one of them. But I would say that it would be more important to Dan Lanning. It's just
I agree with you. And I think that most people, basically throughout the offseason, obviously we've been talking about this game forever. I think that a lot of people, even within the Ohio State fan base, thought, yeah, we might lose that one out there, because people have so much respect for that home venue, that is just it's one of the great home venues and one of the great home field advantages in college football. The travel, the isolation, everything about it, the noise, it's just a different deal. And I was just talking, I was on an Oregon show about I think that in the playoffs, being able to get the home field advantage as the 5th through 8th seed up there at Oregon is probably one of the best things you could have. Like, that's just in the playoffs, that would be so different even. Yeah. But I feel like that gives a little leeway to Day as far as getting saddled with those kind of labels and such. But I'm with you. I think it is bigger for Lanning in this circumstance. But at the same time, I think this game is really big. And I think it's really big because of everything it represents outside of just the Big Ten race this year. The new age guy coming in with all this bravado, talking all this crap, the Team Out West documentary, coming into Ohio, trying to plant their flag in the Midwest and recruiting, getting Trey McNutt out of Ohio. There's going to Naeem Offord going to be on the sidelines, Jakeem Stewart going to be on the sidelines. Like, there's a lot more implications than just what's going to happen in the Big Ten standings and the Big Ten race this year, or for either of those coaches' legacies. It just feels a little bit different. And between the fan bases, I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen. There's a lot of trepidation on both sides. I've talked to a lot on both sides. You got some negatives on both sides and negative parts of the fan base. Most people, I think, on both sides are very positive. They're pretty confident. We're pretty confident. I'm really confident. I wasn't very confident 3 months ago. I was somewhat confident. But now, as we go on, as the offensive line has gotten better, as the defensive line has looked like I thought they would, the secondaries looked like I thought they would, and most especially Will Howard for me. When you look at Dylan Gabriel, all off season, it was essentially just kind of understood that Oregon got the best quarterback of that transfer portal class. That was the word. That's what all the experts said, and that's just what it was. And I wouldn't pick Dylan Gabriel, the guy that I'm seeing play this year, over Will Howard to quarterback this Buckeyes team. I wouldn't. I'd pick Will Howard 10 times out of 10 for this Buckeyes team. And he said what I think was the most perfect thing I've heard today when he talked at the press conference about his running. about taking that first hit and getting juices flowing. Sound like a linebacker, Dylan. You know what I mean? Like you don't hear a quarterback say that. I just think that it's the right guy, right time, right place. And that's what's ultimately going to decide this team. It's the quarterback, right?
Yeah, I totally agree on that, and that's not to say I'm not knocking Dylan Gabriel at all, but I think for this Ohio State team, and we talked about it so much when Will Howard came here, and then when Chip Kelly ultimately was hired, it seemed like a match made in heaven for what Ohio State was going to do offensively, or what Chip was going to want to do offensively, and what Will Howard could do. Look, it's time now. This is Ryan said it. Will talked about it. This is why Will Howard came to Ohio State, not just, that whole, you hear this every time there's a big matchup, though. This is why you come to Ohio State. This is why you come to Oregon. No, he came here because of what his specific skill set could do in these kind of games. And Ryan Day talked about why they went out and got a guy like Will Howard. I truly believe Will Howard's feet will be one of the biggest X factors in this game on Saturday, not because he's going to rip off, chunk yardage and burn Oregon's defense, but just because in these kind of games, even if it's the smallest things like, Oregon just scored and you don't want to put your defense right back on the field. So you just need to get a first down or two, things like that, picking up first downs like that, all those little things. And certainly, making plays in the red zone, with his feet and whatnot. I think that's going to be a huge thing, more than it has, it didn't need to be up to this point, but
right.
more so than it has been. I think that this is the game where it has to be an X factor. I think it'll be imperative that Ohio State has that offensively, and not only just Will Howard, but also what that would mean for the rest of the running game as well. Make them have to respect Will Howard keeping that football and burning you with his legs, and watch Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins rip off chunk yardage in the regular run game. I think it's a huge thing, and if it's going to happen, this is the kind of game that'll happen. Now, look, Will Howard still has to make plays in the pass game. He still has to distribute the ball, and he has to play clean football. We know, again, I talked about earlier, turnovers. Everybody knows turnovers are huge in any game, but especially in this game, going on the road in that environment, you cannot turn the football over. We know that. And look, he's been a little bit careless with the ball, in the last couple of weeks, and it can't continue. But I think his legs are going to be a huge X factor for Ohio State this week, and it needs to be. And if that does happen, if that comes to pass, and Will Howard's legs played a big part in Ohio State going out and scoring, say 35, 38 points in a big win out in Oregon, it will have validated everything Ohio State thought they were getting and why they went and got that guy specifically for their offense. And I expect that to be the case. We'll see, but I think this is a great opportunity, not just a great opportunity because of the stage that he's on, but I think this is a really good chance to showcase why Ohio State got Will Howard, and I expect him to play well in that sense. I really do.
100%. Totally with you on all that, and I do think that he will go out and show that. I think he's going to play a really good game, and I think that he is going to use the X factor that is his legs, that everybody has embraced, which it's almost like, man, it's about time. Yes. Finally, let this guy go out and do what he can do. Take the reins off, and it's going to be great. Dylan, I can't wait. Tell us your plans for the when are you heading out?
Leaving Friday morning, bright and early Friday morning, flying straight into Eugene. I know a lot of people on the beat are flying up to Portland and either staying up there or then driving down to Eugene. I booked this stuff, well in advance. I want to say back in April. So it wasn't really any cheaper. It's a lot of times it's cheaper to go to Portland. It wasn't really any cheaper. Not to mention, I just wanted to be in Eugene on Friday to experience that atmosphere. A big atmosphere guy. Like this is what college football is all about, right? Being in, a small college town like that for a game of this magnitude the day before. I just love to walk around, go eat somewhere, enjoy the scenery, walk campus, go see the stadium, all that stuff. So I'm staying in Eugene. I'll be there Friday, early afternoon, have all afternoon and evening to take that in. And then obviously Saturday, I don't know what time the press box opens, but I'll be there as early as they'll let me in to just take a look, like any college football fan, Austin's been on my bucket list of places to go see for a while now. I have so much respect for that atmosphere, that fan base, and everything they have going on out there. I was supposed to go do this in 2020, right? I was so excited. It was my second year on the beat. And and I only traveled a little bit in 2019, my first year. So 2020 was going to be my first year of fully traveling, on this beat and whatnot. And they're scheduled to go to Oregon. And, I was so excited to check that off my bucket list and whatnot. And then, of course, COVID, crapped all over that and whatnot. So this has been a long time coming for me. I just can't wait to get out there. Certainly just, from a fan standpoint, let alone the game itself, which is, couldn't be any bigger.
Well, and at the time that got, canceled, you thought, all right, that's done. I'm never going to get to do this. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're absolutely, that's a great point. I mean, at the time I was like, wow, I had a chance not just to get out there and see the venue, but to see Ohio State play in that game, and what would have been, again, another big football game. I don't know if it would have been a top fiver, but it would have been a big football game, certainly. And at that point, I'm like, they're coming to Columbus next year, but who knows if I ever get that opportunity again for that to happen. And here we are, just a few years later, as fate would have it. I get to go out there for their first ever Big Ten matchup together, in a top 5 matchup. I mean, to be honest with you, I've been blessed to see a lot of big football games in my life, Ohio State football games. Whether it be regular season, postseason, bowl games, all that stuff. There are very few times outside of some of the biggest Michigan games that, we could think of that I've ever been this excited. It's right up there with going to South Bend last year. And it's on a short list for sure. So I can't wait to get out there. I hope the game goes well, but no matter what, I hate to play this card, but no matter what, I'm going to come home saying, man, what an opportunity. So, but it would certainly help to get that win as well. It better, because I have my flight from San Francisco all the way to Columbus, Ohio will be the longest flight of my life. I've flown a ton, but I've never had a flight that long. So it would be nice to have a win to break down on the computer while I'm making that journey back to the Buckeye State. So, but we'll see.
Absolutely, man. Well, we can't wait to hear all about it when you come back. I've never heard a firsthand account from someone I trust about just how loud that stadium really is. They always exaggerate, I feel. I don't know, but we can't wait to hear about it. I appreciate it, buddy. Have a safe trip. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. You talk about that noise, and I kid you not, I don't know if this will be the case or not, but we got our approval emails from Oregon for our credentials. They send you an email to confirm that you've been approved for your credential. And in the email, it mentioned that some people, and I know they're expecting a ton of people, both national media and obviously Ohio State's beat's huge and whatnot. Some people will be sitting on the roof. I have no idea no idea what that means. But it mentioned in there that there will also be seating on the roof. I have no idea what Oregon's press box looks like. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that cutoff is. Frankly, like I'm a little intrigued by it. Now I don't know what the accommodations are, but if you told me that like it was still like I had a place to sit my computer and write in a decent chair, but I'm exposed to the elements outside, I'm kind of intrigued by it, because sometimes in the press box you don't get a great feel for the atmosphere. So I might have a really interesting story for you the next time I talk to you, because if I didn't make the list or however that's decided and I end up sitting on the roof, it could be very interesting. And rest assured, I'll be taking a lot of video from up there if I end up on the roof of that damn thing, whatever that looks like. So.
Oh man, I can't wait to see pictures of this regardless. But if you get rooftop pictures from the press box, amazing. Love it, dude.
For sure.
All right, buddy. Have a great one. We'll talk to you.
As well. Thank you.
Hey, guys, I want to take a second to thank you and Columbus Apparel Co. They are the official sponsor of Juckonbucks. And over at columbusapparelco.com, you can find a full line of Juckonbucks merchandise, as well as all sorts of Columbus and Ohio merch. But what they specialize in is screen printing, and it's very easy these days to get screen printing done. You can punch it in Google. There will be 25 options. And as someone who is your friend, by the way, me, and has been in a business where I've had to get this done for 20 years, I promise you something will come back screwed up. Don't go with them. Go with Columbus Apparel Co. for your next family reunion, for your business, whatever you got going on that you need screen printing. Check them out. Use JUCK20 and you're going to get 20% off. It'll be done right the first time. Support people that support our community, employ people in our community, and support your 4th to 7th favorite college football show. Check them out. columbusapparelco.com. Thanks, guys. And a thanks to Dylan Davis. Always a great time talking to Dylan. Always offers some great insight, and I do love hearing about his stories from the press box. Sitting on the roof at the Autzen Stadium press box sounds pretty awesome. I would love to get some pictures from that. I hope he takes them up on that opportunity and sits on the roof. A couple other tidbits before we wrap. Now, I'm a big uniform guy, and this is an NFL uniform, but I've just got to say that the Denver Broncos not going back to this full time is as criminal as the amount of time the Chargers took before they went back to their powder blues. That is gorgeous. And I've always liked Boise State's look, obviously the same color. It's just a good looking color on a uniform, and the way they've done it here, beautiful. Absolutely love it. And if you hadn't heard, Colby Young, who is a guy who was part of Georgia's transfer portal class from Miami, big receiver. He's been a little underwhelming this year. They expected more out of him. He was arrested. Misdemeanor charge, 2 of them, And I believe the charge, listen, I don't know what it was. It sounds bad. I don't know exactly how you get this, but it was like assault of an unborn child, which I guess that means assault of a pregnant mother or something. Uh, that's a bad sounding charge, but it is a misdemeanor. So I don't know, exactly what went down. However, what I do know is it is a continuation of a pattern that we've seen at the University of Georgia, where there is a section of that team, that program, that absolutely is out of control, has no respect. You can see it on the field. Meanwhile, Kirby is calling out the fan base for not being noisy at games. It's one of the best things in life you can be is self-aware. There's a real lack of self-awareness with him coming out calling out fans, and he can't get a hold of his team. If I was a fan of the University of Georgia, I would not have dealt with that well. Like, get your own house in order first, pal. That's what I'd be saying. Anyway, Jameer Brown from Wayne High School having an amazing season his sophomore year, and he came down for the Iowa game. That's a picture of him and JJ. Dude is the number one wide receiver in the country for 2027. Grew up a Buckeyes fan. Everything is looking good, looking very positive. Also, the highest graded PFF quarterbacks. We've got Cam Ward leading the pack. Jaden Milroe remains number 2. Connor Wegman is number 3. Are you kidding me? Carson Beck, number 4. Drew Aller, number 5. Look at our dude, Diego. Diego is the number 6 highest PFF rated quarterback. Curtis Rourke at Indiana, cracking the top 10 list. Kevin Jennings from SMU. I was talking about him the other day. And Sam Levitt is the guy that beat out Jaden Rashada, who was supposedly the big time transfer in the transfer portal. He wasn't going to win that job. Sam Levitt was going to win that job. That's why Jaden Rashada left. Also at the Iowa game, Riley Pettijohn and TJ Alford with James Laurinaitis. Now, James, a legit 6'3", maybe 6'3.5". They're both taller than him. You go off listings and you always kind of leave a little leeway when you read them, how tall these guys are, because a lot of dudes, they embellish. These guys are both legit 6'3", 6'4". I was very happy to see that. So really exciting stuff. Those are 2 units, absolute units. If you haven't looked at a map lately, there's Nebraska there in the middle. We got Ohio on the right. That's Oregon way over there on the left. RD making it sound like it's the same trip from Ohio to Nebraska as it is from Ohio to Oregon. I'm not so sure. It might be further from Nebraska to Oregon than it is from Ohio to Nebraska, to be quite honest. Check me out on Sports Chat 503. That's my buddy Ryan up there on the left. He's the Oregon Juckonbucks. You can see his background. Look at that. Very similar, huh? And then that is Big Ten Ted to the right there. I've never done a show with Big Ten Ted before this particular show. He was pretty good. I was pretty impressed. And I have got that, the replay of that show on the Juckonbucks feed. So if you want to check that show out, check that guy out. And then I ran across this as well. The highest graded PFF defensive lineman from week 6. We've got 3 Buckeyes against Iowa on the highest graded defensive lineman from week 6 with Ty, Jack, and Tyleek. That's pretty damn impressive, man. Pretty damn impressive against some real competition because Ohio State hasn't played anybody yet. So wanted to share that stuff with you guys and also let you know Chris is going to be on Friday doing a live show at Yogi's. So it will not be Juck and Chris on Friday, just Juck and you. If you want, maybe we'll open up the phone line if anybody wants to call in. Big day, man. Friday before the game. Thursday, we'll be back live at 9:30, our regular time. I listened to Dan Lanning's press conference, and one of the Duck fans said to me last week when I played one of Ryan Day's clips, is he always that nice to the media? Yes, he is the answer. They're used to Mario Cristobal. He's pretty crusty. And Dan Lanning, who's just a jerk, man. The guy's a jerk. It's disappointing, to be honest. I'm disappointed that he's such a jerk, but he is. He treats them all like crap. I don't know how he is to the fans. Ryan said tonight that he was very nice to the fans. And Ryan believes he's the right guy in the right place at the right time for Oregon, and I believe that. And I think if I was an Oregon fan, I'd be over the moon with him. But no excuse to just be a jerk to people. There's just not. Like, I don't do well with that. I don't do well with jerks, man. That's just all it is. The guy's a jerk. So anyway, I think that's all I got. Maybe listen, Penn State. So let's go over the 3:30 slate. We've got not much for the 1:00 slate this weekend. The 3:30 slate has Red River, so Texas and Oklahoma, and I think I got a little graphic here. So Texas and Oklahoma at 3:30, along with Penn State, USC. Now, Penn State ranked number 4. Let's say Ohio State beats Oregon. All of a sudden, are the Buckeyes number 1? I think so. Either way, Penn State moves up into number 3. And from there, Penn State has Wisconsin at Wisconsin and then Ohio State, which means the Buckeyes could have 2 top 3 matchups in a couple of weeks' time. Now, Ryan Day been often criticized for that 2-6 record against top 5 teams. That is 2 opportunities that he's going to get potentially. And I love it. I love it for him. I want my coach to start turning that around. Of course, then they'll just go to he can't win against the SEC once he wins a couple more of those. And we'll get those too. And that's why I want the SEC in the playoffs. I want Georgia because even though they're down this year, I know that Ohio State can beat them. They're the better team. They always have been all year long. I've known that. And I believe that even more firmly today. But they're still the flag bearer. They're still the current standard bearer in college football. If we could get them or Texas or Bama, I want them all. I want to run straight through the SEC on the way to this championship so nobody can say a thing other than $20 million payroll. Thank you, Ross, for giving them that ammo. It is what it is. I can't do anything about it now. And that's that for that. All right, guys, that's our show today. I appreciate y'all so much. I will see you tomorrow at our regularly scheduled 9:30 for Juckonbucks Live, and I'll talk to you then. Juckonbucks out.